Hello, future millionaires, and welcome back to the Get Rich Slow podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Shermer, and I've got our co-hosts here, Rob Delavan and Lance Johnson. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Adrian. You're sounding
Good morning, Adrian.
especially silky baritone today.
Oh, I appreciate that. Today, we're going to kick off with a success story. I'm really excited about this. You guys were telling me about this client you helped recently, and I think it's a good one to kick us off with. So tell me a little bit about this person you helped.
So actually, Lance, I'll let you do this one. We titled this The Power Team of 12. I think we may have been up or down with the number. It might be more like 15 or 16, but Power Team of 12. So tell us what happened there.
It was, going back, the whole idea of us getting together in different offices was to create this one-stop shop for clients. And, Rob and I experienced a client that we actually, it's a client / friend that we went to Sun River with. But the weekend before we went to Sun River, she was walking, I think her dog, or just walking with her friend in their location, and four houses down, there was an open house on a Sunday morning. And so as they were walking, they stopped in. It was like the beginning of the open house at 10 or whatever on a Sunday. And they walked in, and my client was like right next to her best friend, 4 houses down. And she was already talking in the financial planning meetings of wanting to move, and that the house she was in was the one that was post-divorce and all that, and wasn't her dream home. And so all of a sudden she walks in and she calls me up and says, "Hey, remember we did all the planning? I think I found a house." And she's like, "I need somebody to help me make an offer because they're taking offers today." So I called up one of Rob's team members, and I think you were somewhere else, Rob. And one of his team members came out, ran out there, looked at the home, write up an offer, literally probably got everything done an hour later. I mean, it was just amazing. She got out of on her way back to her house, she calls me and she goes, meets the clients, gets showered up, goes out there, hour later, makes an offer on this house. And obviously at that time, this was, God, I can't remember exactly when it was.
Late summer of 2021, I think.
Like September. No, it was August.
August 2021.
Because we went to Sun River at that time. And went out there, one of maybe 15 offers. They ended up getting it, or she did. And then the next weekend, that client, Rob, ourselves went to Sun River, and we're sitting by the pool, and she found out that she was the winning bid, and now all this stuff has to happen. And she's sitting by the pool, and we had to get an inspection done, so we knew somebody there. We had to get refinancing, talking about that. She was buying a home before she sold her home. She was going to do some remodeling, so there was an architect that they needed to be involved. And then there's Jen Orr,
the designer,
the designer, and the handyman, and Lance Baltazar. Like there was like 12 different B&I group members, and she's sitting at the pool while Rob and I are playing with our kids. And tax returns were done, had to get that stuff all submitted. Statements were submitted from ROI Financial. And she's like literally doing this within a 2-hour. She connected with like 12 people. She's like, this is unbelievable. I literally just had to say, yep, go out there, this person, talk to this person. And so this team of 12 people, while she's sitting by a pool, negotiating, finalizing the house, and then setting up the plans of selling her house and remodeling and what it all looked like. And she's like, that's the easiest transaction I've ever done. Right. Even though it was pretty complex, actually.
Yeah. There was a lot of moving parts. She knew exactly, she was prepared, from a personal finance standpoint. And then it was just a matter of knowing the right people. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, that's like the culmination success story for everything that we've been trying to do with, all of our businesses together. So,
Yeah,
and it's just relationships. That's
I feel like everything was planned out ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just, when the right time came, we just called upon the right people.
Right.
And that was, she wasn't stressed about it. She was sitting by the pool. We were there. We stepped in when we needed to step in and told her to call this person. And that was pretty impressive. It was the one time where, from start to finish, she ended up not selling a home and then buying one. That has its own stresses, right? But she had enough equity and other monies to secure the loan, get the new house, remodel it, and then sell the home at the right time to then ultimately have one home with one mortgage. And a lot of moving parts, but it was a pretty, other than supply chain scenarios, it was which we really can't.
Yeah.
That's not our issue, but everything went as smooth as can be, and she's been happy about it. So
yeah, tremendous success.
We should have her on a podcast.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as we described this, is let's have her on an episode.
Yeah.
And we'll just interview her start to finish, and it might need to be cut up into 2 or 3 parter, because there's a lot to that story. So it's pretty cool. But thank you guys for allowing us to share that.
Yeah.
And back over to Adrian for upcoming events. And
best place to find events that are related to our podcast and to the businesses that we're all representatively from, roi-fa.com/events. It's the portal to everything for us right now. And you can find our website links as well to get to our individual businesses if you need our services. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing home sellers and their selling experience based on stats received. We use this group a lot. It's a great source of information, the National Association of Realtors, sometimes abbreviated as NAR. And this uses their stats from July 2020 through June 2021. The information provided supplies an understanding from the consumer level of the trends that are transpiring. And just a reminder, this is part 6 in our 8-part series on sort of housing market and these trends.
Right.
And Rob, I'm going to kick it off with you. Let's see here.
Yeah, just so the full article is on page 9 of the PowerPoint. You can find a section titled Home Sellers and Their Selling Experience. And so you can find that on our PowerPoint on our website.
We'll have this linked here. So Rob, based on the statistics from the NAR article, the final sales price from July 2020 through June 2021 was a median of 100% of the final listing price, the highest recorded since 2002. Do you anticipate this to continue to be a trend?
This is actually a great question, because our information through the NAR in this article and so forth is always basically looking backwards. And the short answer is to a degree, yes. And from my experience since this information came out, which was basically right at the beginning, late 2021 to the beginning of 2022, we've seen continued competition. What we're really talking about is a seller's market across the country. And with that medium 100% of the final listing price, that means the average, no matter, this is across all markets in the US, you're actually selling for full list price, which means the dogs on the market, right? And this is where I'm speaking of, from my experience, is the dogs on the market that really shouldn't sell are being offset by the ones that are great properties, ready to go, usually move in ready, already updated and so forth, that are selling for way over list price. The average being, from the article here and the statistics here, right at 100%. And what we've found over the years or decade and a half that I've been working in real estate is the dogs on the market, the crummy houses, if you will, they are always overpriced. And what's been happening is the ones that are move-in ready and basically the hot commodities on the market, the top 50% or more, are looking at selling for way over. So 100% is a big deal. We haven't seen that since 2002. We've always seen less than 100%, even though we've been in a increasing market since basically 2010, 11.
Yeah.
So yes, I anticipate this to continue. No, I don't anticipate it to continue as much as interest rates change and so forth, which we'll get into in some continued discussion in this episode. What we're really dealing with though is wow, we hit that 100%. This market has been smoking hot, and it really takes a dialed in buyer in a seller's market to be able to compete. And that's what we've been experiencing. And we're still experiencing that, and this is late spring, not quite summer of 2022 at the time of recording of this episode.
Yeah, it's a significant number. And for our audience who may not understand because they haven't yet gotten to that tier of buying and selling houses, you experience this if you ever tried to sell something online, right? You never sell it for what you list it for. If you go buy a car, you're not paying the sticker price on the car. There's always going to be some negotiation down for the most part, unless you're getting the big hot item of the year. Even jewelry, everything, right? There's that starting price, and then there's normally a negotiation down. For the median to hit 100% really means, a high indicator of how hot, iron hot this is for a market.
Yep.
Yeah, and it will be interesting on this where, we're back to, when you look at interest rates, you had the roaring 20s where interest rates came down to 1950, hit its low point of 4.5%, then rose for 30 years to 1982. And, you were looking at 16, 17, 18% interest rates, then came down to April of 2013 and then bounced around. And then recently we got pandemic rates, right? To stimulate the economy. Now they're back up. And what happened in 1950 is your grandparents, my grandparent, they stayed in their house for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because as interest rates rose for 30 years, why would you want to go in, have an increased interest rate, increased house value, and so you're moving to a bigger house, but now you're paying 3 times the mortgage rate. So what did they do? They stayed put in their house with that low interest rate for 30 years, and they just remodeled the house and expanded the house. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects us, because it'll be less homes for sale because people are going to not want to get rid of those 2.5% interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so the supply will be lower, but the demand will be greater. And so it'll be interesting to see how that, if we see kind of a repeat scenario.
Right. Especially with the dampening, if supply goes down and demand stays the same or increases, prices go up. But we have a big dampener right now in interest rates. So it's going to be an interesting, very interesting, next few years.
Okay, Rob and Adrian, based on the NAR article, 46% of home sellers trade up to a larger home, and 28 purchase the same size home. Do you believe people were able to access more home due to the low interest rates? What are your thoughts there?
It's a resounding yes from me, for sure. I always find this data really interesting, and I'm very excited to see what the next year's statistics bring to the table for us to be able to look at how the rates actually affected the real world values. But I know, at least anecdotally, the clients that I've been working with, a lot of people were able to upgrade and then have the same payment because they grew equity at the same time. So they had some money to put down. They didn't have to pay mortgage insurance on the second home, even if it was more home, the amount of equity that they rolled, especially over the last few years. We had a few people, gaining 6-figure numbers over a year, which is historically, not the case, and shouldn't be something you expect, that you're going to buy a house and a year or two later, you're going to have 6 figures in equity. But it happened to some people, and it really unlocked the power for them to jump, 5 or 10 years ahead in what would be the normal cycle of owning real estate. So it's a tricky one. I think that the low interest rates, obviously, to me, were a huge determining factor that brought buyers out into the market as well. And now, as we're looking at that trend turn itself around, I've already had a few of these clients who, they want to sell the house that they bought a year or two ago because their family changed. They've got some sort of personal event that pushes them into the next property, and they're finding that the payment relative to the house is a pretty sizable jump. I've got one right now where it was over $1,000 a month, and the house that they're trying to upgrade to was less than $100,000 more. So it's an interesting problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you, Adrian. With Lance's question here, they were able to access more home, due to the low interest rates. Just the carrying cost with interest rates is affected positively when the rates are lower, and as they go up, the carrying cost becomes more expensive. So I think we're going to see some transition there. But looking at those statistics from this NAR article, almost half, 46%, they traded up to a larger home.
Most people upsize.
If half the market's doing that, then 28% purchase the same. So really, that only leaves you, my rough math is 25% less, right? Give or take. And you're looking at 25% of the market downsized. So you really start getting into what is the supply of homes. Our homes, there's all sorts of different conclusions that you can draw, from this data. The bottom line is what everybody really wants to know. Okay, this was happening in the past. In the future, nobody has a crystal ball. Interest rates have risen. We're in the fives now. Again, this is late spring of 2022. Less than in the last 2 years. At one point, we were at 2.5, give or take. So, interest rates have more than doubled. That's definitely going to create a change in the market. So that's where things are going to get really interesting. Okay, so the third question, actually, I wanted to pose this to Lance to start us off. With the rise in mortgage interest rates, which we talked about going from, in the last couple of years, 2.5%, and we're over 5%, and cost of living, which is inflation. How are you advising your clients when it comes to selling their home?
Well, that's there's
big question.
Get your pencils out. Get your pencils out, audience. Well, this is the
there's all sorts of scenarios that come about. So the first thing I would say is financial planning here. Are you in the future? Is this your forever home? Is this the house you're going to make a rental? Are you going to make this house in the Portland area a rental and you're going to go live somewhere else in a more tax advantageous state, a more rural place? You know what I mean? So do you have to sell? The prices are pretty good right now. People can clean up a lot of debt and have make mortgage interest rates a non-event by consolidating things, right? So there is just there's more questions than answers to this question.
Yes.
And it really gets down to the individual person's scenario of, are they living in Portland, and are you doing Roth conversions, and are you going to move somewhere else in a more rural place and a more tax advantageous state? There's political issues now, right? There's all that now. So obviously with rising interest rates, the return that you have to receive on investments, whether it's in Roths or IRAs, how do you want to pay down debt and free up cash flow? When you're at 2.5%, that's free money by the time you look at tax advantageousness, depending on your situation.
Yeah.
But if interest rates go up and you're at 5, 6, 7% in the future, that's better than a bond at that right now, by paying down debt and getting your debt as low as possible.
Right.
So I just think you have to look at your performance of investments, whether it's tax-free or not. And then really, if you start to get 5, 6, 7% interest rates, there's a guaranteed rate of return by paying that debt down and freeing up that cash flow. So just
Yeah.
depends on, are you in retirement or not, where your assets are. There's a lot to that question. That's a very simple question with many parts to it.
Personal risk aversion.
The fun part about that is, and you said it multiple times there, it depends on where the client's at. I think the biggest thing is, there's an arc in a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked about in this episode, upsizing your house. Well, we didn't really talk a lot about downsizing the house.
No.
So it's a very different strategy. When you're downsizing, the market's hot, values are way up, but interest rates are up. It's a fabulous time to downsize. If your life is conducive to that.
Right. So even though interest rates have gone up in the last, you talk about from that June 21st to now, so June of 2021, sorry, not June 21st, interest rates were 2.5%, coming at, remember we got back into a pandemic, it was starting to rise, they lowered interest rates. And you're right. I mean, the values of properties have gone astronomical there was a greater demand for homes to either downsize or whatever, change before interest rates went up. And so the values of homes went up. Now the interest rates have gone up. You normally see 1 to 2 years later, the backlash of that. And then all of a sudden now there's not as many buyers. There's equal amount, or you get one offer and it's not in the first weekend you put it on the market. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see that. But when you can go from, a house that you bought, a client bought a house for $760 and then 18 months later sell it for $961, that's craziness, right? You sell it and downsize or move to a more rural area, or a rural area in a more tax advantageous in retirement that's more conducive to retirement life.
Right.
Maybe you're in a position that you don't have a mortgage and all your debts are gone. And that's a nice position to be going into retirement. So it just depends on where your stage of life is. I think it's going to be interesting on this one is how it affects the corporate world. So on one end, everybody can work remotely. And on the other end, just like we experience, sometimes people are starving for that interaction, facial interaction with people. And each business model is going to be different in how they deal with taking care of clients, forcing them to move.
Right.
Be interesting to see how it affects corporate. So Rob, you want to wrap up kind of this is your market with home sellers?
Well, yeah. So the final thoughts here are just this. I think the final thoughts on this piece are just this concept of we're heading into change. And this has been a lot of fun so far, as we continue to explore this. This was number 6 in an 8-part series. 7 and 8 are coming soon. And in the next episode, number 7, we'll be learning about home selling and real estate professionals. And the one constant, right, is change. So that's what we all got to deal with.
And I think just as a point, I mean, our clients have benefited from a rising real estate market above average, especially here in the Portland area, but across the nation. The market has done extremely well, whether it's been propped up by, stimulus and all that, a 12-year bull market run. It makes a lot easier situations for qualifying for mortgages. It's safe to say that our clients and ourselves have benefited for getting things done, and it probably didn't take as much work as it will in the future. We're probably going to have to work twice as hard to get the same results for clients. And in some cases, we might not get those returns going forward because we've had them in the past. And we just gotta be real on setting lower expectations that are still achievable. But like it was nice for a while where people were getting higher house prices and higher investment prices to pay for bigger down payments and with lower interest rates. And I think there's going to be a pain point in the future of it's not going to be as easy, and more planning is going to take place.
Yeah, agreed.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for this. This is a fun one, and we'll look forward to hearing from you guys on the next one, episode 7, coming soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, guys.